We got a hot show for you today on Wake Up with Word. We're talking Man Up PHL with mentor Brother Stanley Crawford and board members Dr. Brian Ellis, Jeff Brown of Brown's Family ShopRite, and financial consultant Akbar Hassan. We'll talk to Sonia Sanchez and Kenny Gamble about the legacy of Dr. Lomax. Plus, we'll have a special conversation with the Lomax family about Dr. Lomax, Word's history of movement, and what it all means for our community. And as always, we've got you, our listeners, calling in at 215-634-8065. A toll-free 1-866-361-0900. Hit us on Twitter and Instagram at onWURD, or you can hit me personally at Solomon Jones 1. Watch us on Facebook at onWURD. But first, it's the big three, the news stories you need to know to kick off your day right here on Wake Up with Word. Story number one, the state of Michigan has reached a settlement to pay $600 million to victims of the debacle that exposed tens of thousands of residents to lead-contaminated drinking water for nearly 2 years. The settlement, which will be announced today, will award the most money to the city's youngest children who were at greatest risk for lead poisoning and the neurological problems it can cause. That water crisis began in 2014 when that economically distressed city changed the source of its municipal water supply to save money and became one of the nation's worst public health disasters in decades. According to the settlement, which was reviewed by the Washington Post, 80% of the monetary award will go to residents who were younger than 18 at the time of their exposure. More than half of that amount will go toward children who were younger than 6. And so they went through 18 months of negotiations, attorneys, all kinds of people involved in it. But it's good to see those kids get some money. My fear is that money can't reverse the damage that lead poisoning can do to your brain. It can cause brain damage, developmental disability, like all kinds of stuff affect you for the rest of your life. And so I'm praying for those kids, man, because that was a whole mess that happened in Flint, Michigan, and it just dragged on and dragged on for years.
Yeah, I mean, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's enough money. I really don't. I mean, I know it's 600, that's a lot, but the fact that it went on for so long, and it was you know, black folks. And to me, it was really just kind of a slap in the face, because it's like, we don't really care about y'all, and we're going to give you these little pennies here to kind of try to make up for the fact that you could have debilitating life issues throughout the rest of your life because of something that we did. So I am glad, though, that they are getting some compensation. You know, it's almost like too little too late. Like, money doesn't, it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna change necessarily the outcome of your, like, it's a lot to me.
It is a lot, and you know, again, prayerfully, those kids are going to be all right. There is a bishop there who we talked to, who is an activist on the front lines. We're going to try to get her over these next couple of days to kind of bring us up to speed on what this all means to that community. And speaking of community, story number two, the school district of Philadelphia's attempt to renovate one of its high schools in 2018-2019 created dangerous conditions for students and staff, according to an inspector general's investigation released Wednesday. An artificially compressed construction timeline triggered by an expiring lease at another district high school led officials to ignore warning signs, run up costs, and ultimately create hazardous circumstances, according to the Office of Inspector General. Alarm bells were sounded by many witnesses before and during the work on this project, the investigation concluded. Nevertheless, the warnings went largely unheard or unappreciated. There was no other alternative than getting the job done on time. Here's my problem, right? Nobody cared about what was going on. We talk about Benjamin Franklin High School. Benjamin Franklin is at Broad and Spring Garden. Nobody cared about what was happening with Ben Franklin before Ben Franklin merged with SLA to bring other kids into those buildings. SLA is Science Leadership Academy. It's a magnet school that has a lot of white kids, right? Nobody cared, and it's been reported. I mean, it's not like I'm saying anything unique. Nobody cared about what was happening at Ben Franklin or at any of the over 100 buildings with asbestos in them until the white kids and their white parents started raising hell about it. I'm gonna be honest. Nobody cared about what was happening there. Now all of a sudden it's Inspector General reports. It's all kinds of chaos around it. It's all kinds of schools with asbestos in them, man. We have to start caring. Our people who represent us have to start caring, no matter what the kids, no matter what the parents, no matter how much money they have, no matter how much influence they have. These are our kids, and it goes back to the same issue of Flint. When you got kids who are going to be permanently brain damaged from that lead. Same thing with our schools. You got kids who are going to get mesothelioma, cancer, from the asbestos in these schools, but it's only a problem when the white folks show up. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. That's a problem, and it needs to be fixed, not just in Ben Franklin, but in all of the schools that are affected by this.
Yeah, it really is. It's a shame, and it's an injustice to our kids. And y'all wanted kids to go back to school during the coronavirus, and you can't even keep asbestos out the schools. Like, this is the stuff that is it's asinine to me. It really is. Like, I don't understand how folks can be okay with this. But you're absolutely correct. It doesn't seem to matter as much when it's black kids, but then when you start to bring others into it, now it becomes an issue. So I think that we need to make sure that we are treating all of our kids equally in the same. They're our future. They really are.
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. And so the Democratic National Convention took place last night, and of course we heard from a number of people. We heard Kamala Harris accept the Democratic nomination as vice president. We also heard from former President Barack Obama. But I think we have to take a listen to what Kamala Harris had to say. As a matter of fact, let's take a listen to what Barack Obama had to say. Okay, let's listen to what I have to say as we get that sound together, because it's, to me, the whole thing is really about hearing from these two really historic figures at this point. Barack Obama, who really broke with tradition, because traditionally former presidents do not criticize their predecessors. That's not what happens in the United States. You let them do the job, whether they do it well or they do it poorly. You let them do it, and you kind of fade into the background so that they can lead. The problem is we have a president who seems to have no interest in leading. He seems to have an interest in creating chaos. He seems to have an interest in dividing people, but he doesn't really seem to have an interest in leading. President Obama, in his speech at the Democratic National Convention last night, said, "Do not let them take away your power. Do not let them take away your democracy." And of course, it was Harris's night, but Wednesday was ladies' night more broadly, as Democrats overtly appealed to the constituency that powered their victories in 2018 and is crucial to 2020. Convention week dovetailed with the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, and in a nod to the women who brought about votes for women, Hillary Clinton wore white, so did House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Senator Elizabeth Warren refashioned her "I have a plan for that" message from her own presidential campaign to promote Biden's plan on child care, a top concern for working women and families. And so we're going to take your calls at 215-634-8065. That is 215-634-8065. What did you think of Barack Obama last night? What did you think of Kamala Harris last night? What did you think of what she had to say as she accepted the nomination? And in case you didn't catch it, let's take a listen to Kamala Harris accepting the nomination for Vice President of the United States.
And we are a nation that is grieving the loss of life, the loss of jobs, the loss of opportunities, the loss of normalcy, and yes, the loss of certainty. And while this virus touches us all, we got to be honest, it is not an equal opportunity offender. Black, Latino, and indigenous people are suffering and dying disproportionately. And this is not a coincidence. It is the effect of structural racism. of inequities in education and technology, healthcare and housing, job security and transportation, the injustice in reproductive and maternal health care, in the excessive use of force by police, and in our broader criminal justice system.
So that was Kamala Harris and part of what she said last night in accepting the nomination for Vice President of the United States. It was a historic moment, and at the same time, it was a weird moment because she's in this empty room. You know what I mean? And you see the flags that are representing each state in the union, but it's a historic moment. At a historic time, and I want to know what you think about it. I mean, here it is. You have this black woman, and she's standing up and saying, "I am accepting your nomination as Vice President of the United States." On the same night that she speaks, the first black president speaks, and speaks in a way that really we have not heard him speak before. He talked about Donald Trump being a threat to our democracy. He talked about Donald Trump really not being up to the job. He talked about the truth. And he said, I'm going to speak very frankly. And for those who don't know, he spoke from Philadelphia. He spoke from the Museum of the American Revolution down on Chestnut Street, right here in Philadelphia. And so I thought that was an interesting backdrop because what's happening now is the Constitution is being shredded. What's happening now is the rule of law is being bent and broken and tattered in the name of keeping Donald Trump and his cronies out of trouble, out of jail, you know, out of having to face the consequences of their actions. And so let's take a listen to some of what Barack Obama had to say last night at the Democratic National Convention.
We are all the children of Americans who fought the good fight. Great-grandparents working in fire traps and sweatshops without rights or representation. Farmers losing their dreams to dust. Irish and Italians and Asians and Latinos told, go back where you come from. Jews and Catholics, Muslims and Sikhs made to feel suspect for the way they worshiped. Black Americans chained and whipped and hanged, spit on for trying to sit at lunch counters, beaten for trying to vote. If anyone had a right to believe that this democracy did not work and could not work, it was those Americans, our ancestors. They were on the receiving end of a democracy that had fallen short all their lives. They knew how far the daily reality of America strayed from the mint. And yet, instead of giving up, they joined together. And they said, somehow, some way, we are going to make this work. We are going to bring those words in our founding documents to life.
So that is Barack Obama, and we appreciate him and appreciate hearing the truth from him on the issue of race. It's something he really could not talk about in that same way during his presidency, because he was the president of everybody, not just the president of black people. He was the president of the United States. And so it has been very interesting to watch just the gloves come off. It has been very interesting to watch the truth come out. It has been very interesting to see people who really have tried to maintain their dignity and tried to maintain their distance really jump into the fray. I think what it shows is that we are in a different time. We are in an emergency where the state of the country is threatened. You got a president who's saying, well, I don't know if I'm going to accept the results of the election if I lose. What? You know, and it reminds me of 2016 when I saw his inauguration. What I saw was a peaceful transition of power, and it was something that was talked about because the majority of Americans did not want Donald Trump to be president. He lost the popular vote by 3 million votes, right? But he was able to win the electoral votes, which you know, that needs to be changed. But the presidential election is a state-by-state election, and so he won enough states to win the electoral votes that he needed in order to become president. But even though most Americans did not want him to be president, there was still a peaceful transition of power. There has always been in the United States a peaceful transition of power from one president to the next. And so here you have somebody who's threatening the very foundations of our democracy by first trying to undermine the election. Oh, if I lose the election, it means it was rigged. If you care about this country, you don't say that. Because what you do is you set neighbor against neighbor. You set father against son. You set right against left. You set liberal against conservative. You set people against each other when you say that. That's dangerous language. You know, but if you care about this country, you don't do that. But the problem is we have somebody in charge who does not care about this country. And so we'll see what happens as Barack Obama speaks up, as Michelle Obama speaks up, as Republicans like John Kasich speak up, as people speak up and begin to recognize that, no, this person is a threat to our country, and it's a threat that has to be met. And we'll see what happens with that. But, of course, there's also local threats to our community through the issue of gun violence, our children being killed by guns. And one of the things we've done here at Wake Up with Word is that we have addressed that issue. I started a nonprofit called Man Up PHL to deal with the issue of gun violence, one life at a time, to mentor young men who could be victims or perpetrators of gun violence, to show them another way, to move them in another direction. That is what we've done. And we are going to talk with some of the leaders of Man Up PHL on the other side of this break. I'm Solomon Jones. This WURD. We'll be right back.
Philadelphia families, PHL Pre-K, the city's free pre-K program, is now enrolling. Over 130 pre-K centers are getting ready to serve children this year with appropriate health and safety precautions. There are no income limits for this free pre-K program. Children who are 3 or 4 years old as of September 1 can enroll. Call 844-PHL Pre-K or visit phlprek.org to learn more and find a quality pre-K center. That's 844-PHL Pre-K. This program is made possible by the Philadelphia Beverage Tax.
Tune in this Sunday at 4 p.m. for the Halal Industry Show.